I never thought saying yes to an open relationship would destroy my life until my husband fell in love with my best friend. Even now, as I sit here trying to make sense of it all, I'm still not entirely sure how we reached this point. My name is Lindsey, I'm 29, and I used to think I had everything under control. My husband, Eric, and I got married fresh out of college, starry-eyed and deeply in love. We were the couple everyone envied, passionate, playful, always finishing each other's sentences. We both grew up in small Midwestern towns, moved to a bustling city for college, and somehow managed to keep that warm, close-knit feel in our relationship even as the world around us turned hectic. Back then, we shared a tiny apartment in Chicago. The walls were so thin we could hear our neighbors arguing or celebrating every night, but I loved it anyway. Eric worked at a startup tech firm as a software developer, while I became a graphic designer at a local marketing agency. We were both creative, driven, and determined to succeed without sacrificing our marriage. Over time, life sped up. Eric got promoted twice, and his responsibilities nearly tripled. My agency expanded, meaning I had to handle more clients, more projects, more stress. The days of spontaneous dates and playful banter began to fade, replaced by nights hunched over laptops in separate rooms, each of us lost in our own world. When we finally crawled into bed, we'd be too exhausted to talk, let alone connect the way we once did. Our intimacy dwindled, but for a while I refused to acknowledge it. We were just busy, I told myself. Things would settle down eventually. But as the months rolled on, it was clear we were drifting. We'd bicker over small, insignificant things, who forgot to buy milk or whose turn it was to pay the utility bill. It didn't help that we rarely had the energy or time for deep conversations, let alone romance. I started feeling restless. Eric did too, though he never said it directly. We still had love for each other, at least I thought so, but there was a definite shift. One day, I stumbled across an article about couples experimenting with ethical non-monogamy, and it sparked a weird mix of curiosity and apprehension in me. Could that be a solution for us, a way to reignite the spark without giving up on each other? I never considered the possibility seriously until I confided in my longtime friend, Naomi. She was more adventurous than me, always encouraging me to push my boundaries. She was the one who convinced me to jump out of a plane for my 25th birthday. So, naturally, she had strong opinions on my marriage slump. "Oh my God, Lindsey, you should definitely talk to Eric about it," she said over coffee. "If you both feel stuck, maybe opening the relationship, just a tiny bit, could be a spark you need." I remember gaping at her. "You're serious?" Naomi shrugged. "Totally. It's not for everyone, but you're clearly unhappy with the way things are. Better to try something new than let the marriage die of boredom, right?" At the time, I brushed it off. "Yeah, sure, I'll mention it," I joked, thinking I never really would. But the idea stayed in my head like a catchy song I couldn't stop humming. A few weeks later, during one of those nights where Eric and I were both awake in bed, staring silently at the ceiling, I forced myself to speak. "Eric," I ventured, my heart pounding. "I've been thinking maybe we should consider an open relationship, just temporarily." He turned his head toward me, face etched with fatigue and confusion. "What are you talking about?" "Well, I know things have been off. We're both swamped, stressed, and it feels like we barely see each other anymore. I read about these couples who let themselves date other people just to rediscover that excitement. Maybe it could help us too." Eric stared at me for what felt like an eternity. My stomach twisted in knots, and I was sure he'd either laugh in my face or walk out. But to my surprise, he didn't dismiss it outright. He inhaled slowly and said, "Are you sure that's what you want?" "I don't know what I want," I admitted, tears pricking my eyes. "I just know I can't keep going like this, feeling lonely in my own marriage." For a moment, he was silent. Then, hesitantly, he replied, "If it's just temporary, maybe. But we need rules, ground rules, so neither of us gets hurt." That was the night we decided to step into territory that neither of us fully understood. We created a list of boundaries in hushed voices at 2 a.m. "It's purely physical, no falling in love." always use protection. We had to be honest about who we were seeing. If at any point someone feels uncomfortable, we stop. On paper, it seemed straightforward enough, like we could somehow keep love out of the equation if we just repeated the rules. But as I'd learn, you can't put boundaries around the human heart that easily. The next few weeks were surreal. We timidly navigated the idea of flirting with other people, going on casual dates. It felt oddly exhilarating to have men check me out at bars and realize it wasn't strictly forbidden to flirt back. Eric seemed hesitant at first, like he wasn't sure how to approach this new freedom, but eventually, he started going out with his coworkers and meeting new people too. Strangely, we talked more during that period than we had in months, though not always deeply. We'd exchange comedic little updates on our experiences. This girl was a terrible kisser. Or, I'm pretty sure that guy was catfishing me. It felt like we were in college again, confiding in each other about crushes, except we were the married ones, analyzing our dates as though it was a game. Naomi was thrilled that I was actually doing it. She teased me, saying, "See, I told you you'd find it exciting." But I still felt uneasy, even if I couldn't articulate why. I kept telling myself it would be short-term, that once we felt that spark of novelty, we'd close the relationship and return to each other, stronger than ever. Eventually, Eric started seeing someone more consistently, a woman named Kyra who, from what I gathered, was a musician he'd met at a coffee shop. He seemed happier than he'd been in a long time, which should have comforted me. Instead, it unsettled me. Our arrangement had always felt like it was just physical, but I noticed him smiling at his phone often, a smile that looked suspiciously affectionate. Still, I kept telling myself, no, we have rules, he won't cross them. I tried focusing on my own dates, but none really clicked. I felt tired, old, and unmotivated compared to how excited Eric seemed. Yet I said nothing, not wanting to be the hypocrite who initiated the open marriage only to demand we stop when it didn't favor me. Naomi was my sounding board for these insecurities. She told me that fear was natural, that the jealousy would fade, that once Eric and I reconnected physically, it would be like fireworks. Little did she know, a bigger storm was brewing. Because I had no idea that Eric, my husband, was about to cross the line we'd sworn never to cross. And worse, the person he'd cross it with was Naomi herself. Looking back now, I can't believe I missed the signs. But sometimes, when we cling too tightly to the illusion we've created, we turn a blind eye to every red flag waving in our face. A week after Eric and I decided on an open relationship, I decided to invite Naomi over for dinner. It felt oddly refreshing to talk openly about my experiences in dating other men, though so far, I'd only met 1 or 2 guys for coffee. Naomi was her usual vibrant self, joking, teasing, making the evening feel light and breezy. At one point, she turned to Eric with a mischievous grin. "So, how are things going on your end?" she asked, wiggling her eyebrows. "You have any juicy updates for us?" Eric chuckled, his posture a bit shy. I met this girl named Kyra," he admitted. "She's interesting, super into music, but I'm not sure yet if there's a real connection or if it's just, fun." I listened quietly, trying to read Eric's expression. There was a hint of something in his voice, not exactly guilt, more like excitement. Part of me still felt uneasy hearing him talk about another woman like that, but Naomi giggled, urging him to share more. "Oh my God, we need details," she teased. "Is she super hot? Any big red flags? Lindsey, aren't you curious?" My cheeks grew warm. Was I curious? Sure. But I also felt a pang, like jealousy's sharp needle pricking my heart. "I guess," I murmured noncommittally, forcing a tiny smile. "As long as he's happy, right?" Naomi kept pushing. "How old is she? What does she do? When do we get to meet her?" She was half joking, but Eric's face turned red as he stumbled through answers. Eventually, he looked at me and said softly, "We're just keeping it casual for now." That night, after Naomi left, I lay awake in bed, staring at the ceiling again. Eric was in the bathroom, brushing his teeth for an unusually long time, likely avoiding a conversation neither of us knew how to start. Finally, he came out, slid under the covers, and I whispered, "You seemed really into that conversation with Naomi." He shrugged. "She asked questions, I answered. Are you mad?" I hesitated. Not mad, just weirded out. It's weird hearing you talk about another woman in front of me, but I'm the one who suggested this, so I guess I shouldn't complain. Eric sighed, rolling to face me. "Lindsey, I'm still figuring this out. We both are." He reached for my hand tentatively. "If you want to stop, just say so." My heart twisted. I could have ended it right then, but my pride refused to let me. "No," I whispered. "Not yet. We haven't given it a fair chance, right?" He nodded, squeezed my hand gently, and we lapsed into silence. Sometimes it felt like we were strangers, lying side by side. In the following days, I tried to immerse myself in work to stave off the gnawing doubts. My marketing agency was in the middle of a big project for a tech startup, which meant tight deadlines and late nights at my laptop. I welcomed the distraction. Anything was better than sitting alone at home, wondering if Eric was out with Kyra or someone else. Naomi and I kept texting. She'd send me encouraging messages like, "How's the open relationship going? Any new cuties?" Or, "Girl, you deserve some fun too." I'd respond with half-hearted banter, not wanting to admit my growing discomfort. One afternoon, she surprised me with a pick-me-up coffee at my office. "Hey babe," she said, appearing at my desk unannounced, Starbucks cup in hand. "I figured you could use a break." She perched on the corner of my desk, scanning my messy pile of design briefs and half-finished logos. "You look exhausted." I exhaled, running a hand through my hair. "Thanks, work's crazy." She studied me, her expression shifting from playful to concerned. "Is it just work, Lindsey? Or is it the whole open relationship thing? Are you regretting it?" I gave her a wry smile. "Kinda, but I can't back out now, can I? Eric would think I'm a total hypocrite." Naomi frowned. "Who cares what he thinks? If it's making you miserable, you should talk to him." She paused, then added softly, "I know it was my idea in the first place, but you shouldn't feel trapped just because you tried something new." Trapped, that word stung because it was exactly how I felt, but I shook my head. "No, I'm not backing out, not yet anyway. I just need to figure out how to handle the jealousy." Naomi gave me a hug. "All right, but remember I'm here for you, no matter what." For a moment, I was genuinely touched by her concern. Little did I know that the same friend who comforted me would become the person I'd fear most. As time went on, Eric became more and more distant. Our new relationship rules seemed to have unleashed a part of him I didn't recognize, or maybe it was always there, and I just never saw it. He'd leave for work earlier, come home later, citing after-hours drinks or meetups. We stopped checking in with each other as much. I'd be lying if I said I wasn't lonely. One evening, I decided I was done mopping. I texted a guy I'd met on a dating app, a casual chat that never went anywhere. His name was Kyle, a freelance photographer who lived downtown. I invited him out for a drink, half expecting him to have moved on. But to my surprise, he said yes. We met at a cozy lounge bar, dimly lit with jazz playing softly. Kyle was charming, with sandy hair and an easy laugh. I felt a flicker of excitement. Maybe this was the night I'd finally get the spark I'd been missing. We chatted about art, photography, my design work, and for the first time in weeks, I caught myself smiling for real. But as the evening wore on, I realized I was checking my phone far too often, wondering if Eric had noticed I wasn't home. Did he care? Was he out with Kyra or someone else? My mood soured, and eventually, Kyle picked up on it. "Everything okay?" he asked, gently placing his hand on mine. I forced a laugh. "Yeah, just complicated relationship stuff." "Listen," he said kindly, "I don't want to be a rebound or a tool for revenge. If you're not into this, it's fine." His words stung because they were so accurate. I was, in a sense, using him to distract myself from Eric. Guilt gnawed at me. I thanked him for the drink, mustered a goodbye hug, and left, feeling more conflicted than ever. Later that night, I came home to find Eric already asleep. The sheets were messy, and an odd scent of perfume lingered in the air. Not mine. My stomach twisted. My head spun with questions. Had he brought someone here? To our bed? Or was that just paranoia? I confronted him the next morning, my voice tight. "Eric, did you have someone over last night?" He blinked groggily, rubbing sleep from his eyes. "No, I went straight to bed when I got home. Why?" I hesitated, scanning his face for a lie, but he seemed genuinely clueless. "Never mind," I said, though a heavy weight sank in my chest. Was I losing it? We went through the motions of our day, barely speaking. That afternoon, Naomi popped into my office again. This time, she had a slightly mischievous smile. "So, guess who I ran into at that new taco place last night?" I raised an eyebrow. "I have no idea. Who?" "Your hubby," she answered, taking a seat. "He was picking up food to go, I think." My stomach tightened. "Oh, okay." I didn't want to reveal the perfume's suspicion, so I forced a casual tone. "Did you guys talk?" She shrugged, just for a minute. "He said he was starved after a long day. We parted ways pretty quickly." Relief washed over me, though a nagging sense of unease lingered. Why did the bedroom smell off if Eric only grabbed tacos and came home? But Naomi noticed my tension and changed the subject, launching into a story about her latest dating escapade. I listened half-heartedly, my mind elsewhere, oblivious to the irony that the biggest dating escapade in my life was brewing right under my nose. A few more weeks passed, and Eric's mood shifted yet again. He seemed lighter, even affectionate at times, which threw me off balance. I assumed it meant his fling with Kyra was going well, and for reasons I still can't explain, I felt both jealous and a bit relieved. Better for him to have a consistent partner rather than random flings, I told myself. Maybe this was how we'd stabilize our open marriage. But an uncomfortable moment arrived one Sunday when Naomi came over for a quick coffee. We were laughing about some silly YouTube video when Eric entered the living room, fresh from a shower, hair damp. Naomi turned to greet him, and in that split second, my breath caught. They locked eyes for just a moment too long. It wasn't obvious. Maybe no one else would have noticed, but I did. There was a flicker of awareness there, something intimate that shouldn't exist between my best friend and my husband. My heart pounded. Was I imagining it? I tried to shake off the suspicion, reminding myself Naomi had always been flirtatious, Eric had always been nice, and maybe I was just reading into it. The entire exchange lasted barely a second before Naomi turned back to me and cracked another joke, pulling me back into conversation. But that seed of doubt lodged firmly in my mind. That night, I tossed and turned, replaying the look in my head. Eric seemed oblivious to my anxiety, drifting off to sleep easily. Eventually, I calmed myself with the rationale that Naomi knew how fragile I was feeling. She'd never betray me like that. Right. Yet I couldn't help noticing subtle changes in our dynamic. Naomi texted me less frequently, often claiming she was slammed at work. Eric started disappearing for random errands. When I asked what he was doing, he'd give vague answers like, just grabbing groceries, or going for a drive to clear my head. If I pressed, he'd get defensive, so I learned to back off. Meanwhile, my own attempts at dating went nowhere. I canceled most potential plans, too emotionally exhausted to pretend excitement. One afternoon, while tidying up Eric's side of the closet, I found a small piece of paper folded in his jacket pocket. My curiosity got the better of me, and I opened it. Inside was a scribbled message that read, "Last night was amazing. Can't wait for next time. N." My lungs seized. N Naomi? Could it be someone else with an N name? My mind reeled through possibilities. Nicole, Natalie, Nina. But the more I stared at the letter N in that looping handwriting, the more it resembled Naomi's signature scrawl. My heart thundered against my ribs, a flood of disbelief crashing through me. I sank onto the bed, the note trembling in my hand. This had to be a misunderstanding. Maybe Naomi wrote a note for me and Eric just picked it up by mistake. But the words, "last night was amazing," tore at my chest. I tried to recall exactly where Naomi was the previous evening. She'd told me she had a date, but hadn't given details. Was her date actually with my husband? For a moment, I considered confronting Eric immediately, but fear clamped my throat. What if I was wrong? What if I was right? Either possibility felt terrifying. Instead, I stuffed the note back, my mind racing. I decided to do something I never imagined I'd do. I'd lie low, observe, gather more information. If Eric and Naomi were actually seeing each other, I needed proof, real, undeniable proof. Because if I accused them without certainty, I risked losing them both for no reason. But if it turned out to be true, I couldn't finish the thought. I shoved the fear aside, forcing myself to smile when Eric came home later. He didn't notice my shaking hands as I passed him a glass of water. I asked him about his day, and he answered in friendly detail about a project at work, the traffic, the coffee machine glitching in the break room. All the while, my stomach churned with suspicion. Could my best friend be the one my husband was truly falling for? The mere notion felt impossible. But from that moment on, every time I saw Naomi's face, every time Eric disappeared for an hour, my heart pounded with growing panic. And so began the slow unraveling of the open relationship I once believed might save my marriage. One message changed everything, and I wish I never opened it. I hadn't planned to go through Eric's phone. I swear I hadn't. But when you start to feel that gut-level dread, when your body knows something your heart isn't ready to accept, it's almost like your hands move before your mind does. It was a Thursday night. Eric was in the shower, and I was folding laundry on the bed. His phone buzzed once then again. I wasn't trying to snoop, but the name that flashed on the screen stopped me cold. Naomi. My pulse quickened. She and I hadn't spoken in over a week. She claimed to be burned out, said she was taking a little time offline. But here she was, texting my husband. I knew I shouldn't have, but my fingers moved fast. I picked up the phone, entered his passcode, same as always, and opened the message thread. What I saw made my entire body go cold. Naomi, last night felt like a dream. I keep replaying that moment when you kissed me in the car. I didn't want to let you go. Eric, I didn't want to leave either. Every time I'm with you, I feel alive again. Naomi, do you think Lindsey suspects anything? I feel like she looked at me funny last time. Eric, she has no idea. I think she's still focused on Kyra, honestly. We just have to be careful. I stopped reading, my vision blurred, I couldn't breathe. My ears started ringing, and I felt like I was about to pass out. They were having an actual affair, not just some physical, open relationship thing. This was full-on cheating, with my best friend. The betrayal sliced through me like a jagged knife. Naomi, my confidant, my sister in everything but blood, had been lying to my face while sneaking around with the one person I trusted most. And Eric, he had crossed the only line we swore we would cross. No falling in love. I dropped the phone as if it burned me. The world spun. My chest tightened, my skin felt too hot, and I had to leave the room before I screamed. I rushed downstairs, my legs trembling beneath me. I stood in the kitchen, gripping the edge of the counter so tightly my knuckles turned white. I wanted to throw something, scream, destroy everything around me. But I didn't, I froze. Because at that moment, I realized the truth. I wasn't just heartbroken, I was humiliated. I had invited this into my life. I had opened the door, drawn the map, and handed both of them the keys. And they'd walked right through it without hesitation. I barely heard the water shut off upstairs. I couldn't move. A few minutes later, Eric entered the kitchen, towel slung around his neck, smiling. "Hey," he said casually, "dinner soon." I turned slowly, unable to mask the fury in my eyes. "Dinner?" I repeated, my voice shaking. He looked at me confused. "Yeah, are you okay?" I stared at him. "How long?" I asked, my voice hollow. His smile dropped instantly. "What? How long have you been sleeping with Naomi?" His face went pale. "Lindsey." "Don't," I snapped. "Don't lie, I saw the messages." For a moment, he looked like he might try to deny it. But then he slumped against the counter, running a hand over his face. "I didn't mean for it to happen," he said weakly. "It just happened." I laughed, a short, bitter sound. "That's your explanation? You didn't mean to. You're sleeping with Naomi, Eric, my best friend." He looked miserable. "I know, I'm sorry, I didn't plan this. We connected. It started when she was checking in on me after our fights. One thing led to another and you fell in love," I finished for him. He didn't deny it. I backed away from him like he was toxic. "You broke every rule we set, every single one." "I didn't mean to fall for her," he said, his voice cracking. "I tried to stop, I swear I did." I laughed again, but this time it was laced with hysteria. "So let me get this straight. You couldn't make time for me for months, but you found time to build a secret romance with my best friend." "I didn't go looking for it," he repeated, sounding like a broken record. She understood me, she made me feel." "Don't you dare finish that sentence," I hissed. Tears welled in my eyes. "Do you have any idea how it feels to read her telling you she didn't want to let you go? To see you encouraging her, saying you feel alive with her?" He looked gutted. "I'm so sorry." "You're sorry now," I shouted, my voice cracking. "After how long? Weeks, months, and you were going to just what? Keep lying to me until I found out." He stayed silent. My hands trembled. "Get out." "What?" "You heard me. Get out." He stepped toward me. "Lindsey, please." I stepped back, shaking my head violently. "No, you don't get to apologize your way out of this. You don't get to stand in my house and tell me how sorry you are. Pack your things, now." He stared at me, lips trembling, and for a moment I thought he might fight harder. But then he lowered his head. "I'll go," he whispered, "but please don't shut me out completely. Can we talk tomorrow?" I turned away. Tomorrow's not promised. He left the room quietly. I sank to the floor in the kitchen, sobbing harder than I ever had before. Not just because I'd lost my husband, but because I'd lost Naomi. The two people I trusted most had burned everything to the ground, and I was the one left in the ashes. And the worst part, deep down, I already knew this wasn't the end. This was just the beginning of the fallout. The next few days were a blur of tears, silence, and aching emptiness. Eric packed a few bags and left that night. He didn't say where he was going. I didn't ask. I didn't care. Naomi didn't call. She didn't text. She vanished. And that, in some strange way, hurt even more. Because betrayal from a partner is a kind of pain that stabs you in the heart, but betrayal from your best friend? That's a knife to the soul. I didn't go to work the next day. I stared at my computer for hours but couldn't design a single thing. My inbox flooded with messages from clients and coworkers, but I ignored them all. The only person I replied to was my manager, just to say, "Family emergency. Need a few days." He responded kindly, no questions asked. On the second day, I finally dragged myself to the shower. I stood there under the hot water, letting it scald my skin as if it could burn away the filth of their betrayal. But it didn't help. I still felt tainted. Stupid, disposable. By day 3, the anger kicked in. I started replaying every moment over the last few months, every suspicious look, every late-night work meeting. Every time Naomi suddenly got busy when I asked to hang out. They'd been planning this, or at the very least, allowing it to happen, and they had the audacity to think I wouldn't notice. I opened my phone, scrolled down to Naomi's name, and hovered over the call button. Then I stopped. What would I even say? "Hey, just wondering how long you've been stabbing me in the back." No, if she wanted to talk, she'd reach out first. But she didn't, not even a cowardly "I'm sorry" text. The silence between us screamed louder than any confession. That Friday, my doorbell rang around noon. I opened it expecting a delivery. It was Naomi. She stood on my porch in a gray hoodie and leggings, no makeup, eyes red and puffy. She looked like she hadn't slept. I stared at her through the screen door. My throat dried instantly. "Lindsey," she said softly. I didn't move. Go away. Please, she whispered. I just need 5 minutes. I didn't answer. My heart slammed against my ribs, rage rising like bile in my throat. I didn't plan this, she said, voice breaking. I didn't mean for it to happen. I opened the door just enough to speak. You didn't mean to sleep with my husband. Tears spilled from her eyes. I never wanted to hurt you. I swear, it just happened. We got close. You and Eric were so distant. He was always venting. I was just... Stop, I snapped, holding up a hand. Don't you dare try to spin this like you were just a shoulder to cry on. You had choices, Naomi, and you made the worst one every single time. She sobbed. I loved you. You were my best friend. And that's the problem, I said coldly. If this were some stranger, it would hurt. But you knew every part of my life. You knew my marriage was fragile. You knew I was scared. And you still took him. I didn't want to, she whimpered. But you did, I said, and you didn't stop. She stepped forward slightly, as if she could fix everything by standing closer. I've ended it. With Eric, I told him I can't do this anymore. I laughed. Oh, how noble. After I found out, after it all exploded. I just want to make things right, she whispered. I shook my head. You can't. There is no fixing this, Naomi. We're done. She gasped like I'd hit her. Please, I can't lose you too. Tears ran down my cheeks, but I didn't wipe them. I wanted her to see the damage. I wanted it to haunt her. You already lost me, I whispered. Now go. She stood there for a few more seconds, then turned and walked down the steps, her shoulders trembling with sobs. I closed the door, locked it, and slid to the floor, crying so hard I thought I might throw up. The following week, Eric called me twice a day. I ignored every call. He sent flowers. I threw them out. He wrote a letter and slid it under my door. It sat on the table unopened for 3 days before I finally broke down and read it. Lindsey, I don't expect you to forgive me. I just want you to know that I never stopped loving you. What happened with Naomi was wrong, and I take full responsibility. I ruined everything, and I will carry that shame for the rest of my life. If you ever want to talk, just talk, I'll be here. I miss you every second. Eric. I stared at the letter for a long time. Part of me wanted to burn it. Part of me wanted to believe him. Instead, I put it back in the envelope and shoved it in a drawer. I spent the next few days avoiding everyone. I ordered groceries online. I let my hair go greasy. I binged sad movies on Netflix just to give my pain somewhere to land. But eventually, even heartbreak gets tired. One evening, I looked at myself in the mirror, really looked. My eyes were hollow, my skin dull, my spirit drained. And I realized something that felt like both tragedy and liberation. I didn't miss Eric. I missed the idea of him, the man I thought he was, the marriage I thought we had, but the version of Eric who could lie to my face and fall in love with my best friend. He didn't deserve me, not anymore. That weekend, I met with my friend Cassie, one of the few people I hadn't pushed away. We sat in a quiet cafe, and for the first time, I told someone everything. Cassie didn't interrupt. She didn't try to sugarcoat it. When I finished, she reached across the table, took my hand, and said, "You didn't deserve any of that, and you're not crazy, you're grieving." I broke down all over again, but this time the tears felt different. Not helpless, just real. Cassie looked me dead in the eye. "You can rebuild, maybe not today, maybe not this month. But one day, you'll wake up and it won't hurt like this anymore." I nodded slowly, unsure whether I believed her, but something in me wanted to. For the first time since everything shattered, I allowed myself to ask the scariest question of all. What would my life look like without him in it at all? I used to think heartbreak was loud, screaming, sobbing, plates shattering against the wall. But the real heartbreak? It's quiet. It's waking up at 3:17 a.m. and realizing the person you love isn't who you thought they were. It's brushing your teeth in silence. It's setting one plate at the dinner table instead of two. And for me, it was standing outside Naomi's apartment building, trying to decide whether to walk away or walk in. It had been 2 weeks since she showed up at my door. I hadn't heard from her since. But I needed answers, not apologies, not tears, just the raw, awful truth. I rang the buzzer. When her voice came through the intercom, it was small and hesitant. "Hello." "It's me," I said. "Let me up." There was a long pause, then the door buzzed. I walked into her apartment like a stranger. It smelled like cinnamon candles and betrayal. Naomi stood in leggings and a baggy hoodie, her hair in a messy bun, eyes red. She looked like a ghost of herself. "Lindsey," she started. "Don't," I said, raising a hand. "I'm not here for an apology, I just want the truth." She nodded slowly. "Okay." I sat on her couch. She sat across from me, curling her legs beneath her like we were about to gossip about some TikTok drama, not dissect the affair that shattered my world. I didn't waste time. "How long?" Naomi looked down. "Almost 2 months." My stomach clenched, and it was emotional too. She nodded. "At first it was just talking. He'd vent about your fights, I listened. It felt innocent. But then you started sneaking around behind my back." I finished for her. She winced. "I didn't mean for it to go that far." "Stop saying that," I snapped. "You always say you didn't mean it, but you made a choice. Every time you texted him, every time you saw him, every time you touched him." Tears spilled down her cheeks. I was lonely too. I haven't been in a real relationship in years, and Erica, he made me feel wanted, important. I stared at her. "So you destroyed mine." "I didn't want to fall in love with him," she whispered, "but I did." There it was. The truth I already knew, but hearing it out loud still felt like a punch to the ribs. "You fell in love," I repeated, numb. Naomi nodded, wiping her tears. "But he loves you. He never stopped loving you. He told me that." I laughed, bitter and sharp. "He loved me while sleeping with you." She shook her head miserably. "I ended it. I knew he'd never choose me, and even if he did, I couldn't look at myself in the mirror." For a long time, neither of us spoke. Finally, I stood. "I hope you think about this every time you feel lonely, every time you miss me, because you didn't just lose a friend, you set fire to the only real friendship you had." Her voice broke. "I know." I walked to the door, paused, and looked back. "I don't hate you, not anymore. I just never want to see you again." And then I left. When I got home, Eric was waiting in the hallway. He stood there like some tragic figure, rumpled hoodie, hair messy, eyes full of pain. "I saw your car," he said softly. "Naomi texted me." "Of course she did," I said flatly. He stepped forward. "What did she say?" "That she loves you," I said. "That she ended it, that you still love me." His face crumpled. "I do." I stared at him. "Why didn't you tell me sooner?" "Because I was afraid. I didn't want to lose you." I took a deep breath. "You lost me the moment you chose her over our vows." He blinked hard. "Lindsey, I want to fix this. I'll go to therapy. I'll do anything." I looked at him, really looked. And I saw the boy I'd loved, the man I'd trusted, the stranger who broke me, all in one person. "Maybe we can fix it," I said, voice trembling. "But it'll never be the same." "I'll earn it back," he said, "even if it takes the rest of my life." I turned away, not ready to believe him. Because trust doesn't come back with words. It comes with actions, with time, with scars. That night, I sat alone on our balcony, blanket wrapped around my shoulders, staring at the city lights. My world had cracked open, but I was still here, still breathing. A text buzzed on my phone. "Cassie, proud of you. Wine night soon." I smiled. Yes, wine, healing, maybe even laughter. I wasn't whole yet, but I wasn't broken either. Not anymore. Because sometimes the final betrayal isn't the end of your story. It's just the part where you begin again. People always say, "What doesn't kill you makes you stronger." I used to roll my eyes at that. It felt like something you stitched on a pillow or slapped on an Instagram post after a breakup. But now, standing at the edge of everything I thought I knew, my marriage, my friendship, my identity, I understand it. Not because I feel strong, but because I'm still here. I didn't collapse. I didn't let it consume me. I survived. And now, I get to decide what comes next. Eric moved out a week later. This time for good. Not into Naomi's arms, because she'd cut ties too, but into an apartment 2 miles away where he could still see our dog on weekends and pick up the books he forgot. We tried therapy. Twice. The sessions were awkward, filled with forced niceties and suppressed rage. I kept looking at him, waiting to feel that spark again, the one we built our life on. But all I saw was a man I didn't trust. A man who broke everything and couldn't understand why glue wouldn't fix it. Eventually, I stopped going. He cried, he begged, but I had already done the hardest thing. I stopped loving him the way I used to. Not because I wanted to. Because I had to. As for Naomi, she disappeared. Deleted her social media. Blocked my number. Quit her job according to a mutual friend. Maybe she moved. Maybe she started over. I hope she did. But I also hope she never forgets what she did. Forgiveness doesn't always come with reconnection. Sometimes, it just means letting go so you can move forward without poison in your chest. And that's what I did. I forgave her. Quietly, alone. And then I left her behind. Months passed, and slowly the sharp pain dulled to an ache, and the ache faded into something more like memory. A scar. I started going out again, not to date, but to rediscover me. I painted again. I took a solo weekend trip to Seattle, drank overpriced coffee, wandered bookstores barefoot. I danced at a bar with strangers and didn't feel guilty about it. I slept with someone eventually. It wasn't romantic. It wasn't emotional. It was a reminder that I was still alive, still whole, still mine. And for the first time in forever, that was enough. People ask me now, would you ever open your relationship again? And I laugh, not because the concept is flawed, but because we were. We were flawed, unhealed, looking for freedom instead of connection. Hoping that adding more people would distract from the real issue, that we stopped showing up for each other. Love doesn't die in silence, it dies in avoidance. And we avoided everything until it exploded. If I could go back in time to that night in bed when I first suggested opening the marriage, I'd whisper to my past self. Talk first, be honest, be brave. Don't try to save a relationship by running from it. But I can't go back, I can only go forward. So I am. And here's what I know now. Some lessons cost you everything you once thought was secure. Trust isn't a switch, it's a seed. Once uprooted, it may never grow the same again. Love needs boundaries, truth, and a willingness to sit in the mess instead of escaping it. And sometimes, the people who say they'd never hurt you are the ones who hurt you most. But that doesn't mean you are broken. It just means they weren't capable of loving you the way you deserved. I said yes to an open relationship, thinking it would save my marriage. Instead, it opened the door to betrayal I never saw coming. And yet, somehow, I found myself in the wreckage. And maybe that was the point all along.